Meludia on myMED-EL is an online music training program that allows its users to practice independently and flexibly from home at their own pace. Meludia has four main modules: Discovery, Intermediate, Advanced, and Expert. This comprehensive program offers long-term music training with over 600 exercises and 1 million sound sequences. It is currently available in 20 different languages. Each module has 8 stars, which consist of musical exercises belonging to 5 musical dimensions: rhythm, spatialization, melody, harmony, and form. The various exercises develop over 5 levels of increasing difficulty, and therefore provide guided and structured step-by-step music training. Meludia approaches music like learning a language with intuitive vocabulary. The goal is to explore the complex sound creations which are used as building blocks for music. When starting an exercise, sound examples are given to familiarize the listener with different concepts. Gamification, repetition, and visual reinforcement are used to engage and support a successful learning process.
So now it's my chance to welcome you. Good morning, good afternoon. I hope you can see my slide, the welcome slide. So again, a warm welcome to MED-EL's Experts Online series with today's session on Meludia, benefits for speech through online music training. My name is Johanna Boyer, and I will be your moderator for today. I hope that you are already familiar with Meludia and MED-EL's promotion via myMED-EL, where we offer comprehensive online music training for free for our recipients and, of course, also you, the professionals, worldwide. If you haven't heard about Meludia, I hope this short video gave you a first introduction and a summary of the potential it offers. My original intention with Meludia was to support our cochlear implant recipients with their musical journey. And I believe that music training can benefit hearing implant users beyond music. And so I'm really excited today to welcome 3 expert speakers that can speak to these benefits which they have observed and investigated, and their experience with Meludia. But before we start, I have a few tips to share with you. If you have been part of Experts Online before, you're probably very familiar with these tips, but we would ask you to please name yourself so we know who you are. We would like for you to mute your microphone if you do not speak. We will have a little discussion Q&A round at the end of this session, and you then can ask your questions in person and open up your microphone. But until then, it would be great if you mute it so we can avoid background noise. We recommend you close all other programs to make your internet connection most stable. And again, all your comments and questions are welcome. You can always already type them in the chat while we go along so you don't forget about them. Last but not least, if you would like to see captions, we have them available in English, and you just need to click on the closed caption button at the bottom of the screen. All right, and with that, I am excited to welcome our first speaker, Bastien Sannac-Cunningham. He is the co-founder and CEO of Meludia. And Meludia is based in Paris, France, but I believe, Bastien, you join us from Brighton. Is that
Absolutely. No. It's nice to
okay?
be
All
here.
right. I'm so excited that you're here. And instead of a presentation for this topic, we have chosen a interview format that we would like to start now. The other presenters will have a presentation, but to make, to switch it up a little bit, we will start with an interview. And so let's start with my first question, which is, what was your original intention with the development of Meludia?
MED-EL was initiated when I encountered Vincent Chantrier, who is a music pedagogue who dedicated 30 years of his life studying how to help his students develop music listening abilities in the most natural way. And Vincent had developed a method which brings together a cognitive, a sensory, and an emotional approach to music. So I would say our goal in creating Meludia was to bring his method to a wider audience through an online tool. And we aim to show that the listening experience of everyone can be developed and shaped at any age. But to do that, we need to tap into the brain's innate listening abilities. The idea is to take very intuitive notions and help people apply them to music. For example, when it comes to rhythm, the very first ability is about counting some beats. And counting is an ability that we get from just 3 or 4 years old and that we keep all of our life. For melody, we start with a sense of direction. Is the melody going up? Is it going down? So you asked about our initial intention, and I would say we developed Meludia as an online platform with more than 600 exercises to help people construct in their mind the different building blocks of music perception step by step. And from the very beginning, we wanted Meludia to be enjoyable, to be intuitive, and also to be accessible to everyone, from children to adults to seniors. No matter what their musical background or their musical level is, and whether they want to make music or not.
Mm-hmm. So let me just repeat one more time the key takeaway here. Repetition is important. So it is not just music education for musicians, but you really wanted to broaden it for anyone interested in music. As you mentioned, children, adults, seniors, music background, no music background. Is that right?
Yes, one of the original intentions was to make music learning more accessible. We know that sometimes music learning can be a difficult experience for people. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of feedback of music teachers who said something at some point, or the musical score, the music sheet. The elements make music difficult to access. And if you don't have a good teacher around you, for example, it's very difficult sometimes to enter the world of music. One of the initial ideas for musicians and for beginner musicians, or for people who never did music or never even want to do music, but they want to engage with music, was to have a way to enter the world of music in a different way.
That sounds great. So what have been your observations and the feedback that you've received regarding the impact of practicing with Meludia?
One of the first observations that we had is that after practicing on Meludia, people notice an impact in their overall listening habits. When they play Meludia, of course, but also when they don't play Meludia, when they live their life. People told us that they felt a better ability to focus on the sounds and to pick the sounds, when there is an environment with different sounds, to be able to tune in to one sound in particular. A better ability to name what they hear or not. And in the context of hearing impairments, people who have to express to their hearing professional what's happening for them. That's a very useful thing to be able to name, if it's lower, if it's higher, if it's quieter, if it's like all of those things. This vocabulary of what I hear and how I can express what I hear is very important. Then we had a feedback from a lot of users about having a deeper emotional connection with music when they were listening to music, also for the people who play music, when they play music, to have this closer connection to music, and which was an important element, because we wanted to bring music in an intuitive way, and it has to come out when you're playing music or when you're listening to music. And I would end by one very crucial point. It seems that after using Meludia, people seem to better understand that listening is not something that just happens to them. It is something that they can have an influence on. They can be active in the way they listen. And with Meludia, it seems that they are encouraged to find different listening strategies, some kind of top-down and bottom-up discussions between the prefrontal cortex, and the auditory cortex. And it has to do with the listening experience within Meludia. They can slow down and listen as many times as they want to the same stimuli. And, that's how the connections in the brain seem to get stronger.
Yeah. So what I hear from your early experience is just kind of to grab out those key words you used is, more focus, and more overall attention to listening, more emotional connection. And all these are very important for our area. But I want to hear, and I want to share this with the audience, this little story you told me, further on your way, when you reached out with Meludia and you were in contact with different organizations and countries. Would you share this Malta story?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we had the opportunity to see Meludia work in very different places. For example, of course, music schools and general schools, but also schools for children with special needs, retirement homes, specialized centers for dementia and Alzheimer's, and even prisons. But the story you're mentioning, I believe, is from working with dementia patients. And it's particularly unforgettable moment that happened when we were working with the government of Malta to introduce Meludia in one of their hospitals. So we arrived in this hospital to give a presentation of Meludia. There were about 30 patients, and each at a different stage of dementia. And one patient seated in a wheelchair was brought very close to us. The nurse leaned over to tell us gently, like, this patient hasn't spoken for over 3 months. But they do respond to music sometimes, so just don't expect too much of a reaction here. We're just putting her here. And as I began with a short introduction about Meludia, I explained that we'd be playing a few musical exercises together and invited anyone who wanted to participate to join in. And we started with the very simple rhythm exercise that I was talking about earlier, where there is a simple pulse. And we need just to count the number of beats. And just after the first sequence has ended, the room is silent. I'm waiting for the reactions. And suddenly a strong, clear voice, 6, I hear 6. And the nurse rushed to the patient just in front of me, wondering what was happening. And it was this patient, the one who hadn't spoken for months. And for the next 30 minutes, which is the length of the session, the patient continued to engage with the exercises, responding to each sequence, which was very surprising. Of course, the answers were not always accurate, but didn't really matter. The joy, and the presence in the responses were here. And after the session, we even got to speak with this person. But of course, as the conversation continued, it became clear that speaking required more and more effort for her, until gradually she returned to the quiet state we'd found her in when we arrived. But it's crazy and magic to think that for a moment music had unlocked something within her, a glimpse of connection. It was very moving.
Yes, that's it's a great story. Thank you for sharing this. And I think it really shows the impact music and Meludia can have. And you said something that's, really important for our area as well, which is it doesn't have to be always correct. The answer doesn't always have to be correct. It is about exploring music. And so I have a final question, and then we will continue. I really would like for you to share a little bit. Since the development and release of Meludia, you have branched out in other sectors, education, health, hearing. And so what are the benefits that you can report on or that are currently under investigation?
So yes, definitely. There are some ongoing research, and there has been some past research. I'm going to talk about two fields in particular. There is the field of education, general education, and there is the field of hearing impairment. In education, there is an ongoing study at the University of Amsterdam researching the far transfer benefits of Meludia for children in primary schools. So the idea is to look at the effects beyond music on the brain and on education of playing Meludia or of introducing Meludia in a primary school setting. And the researchers are particularly interested in the potential impacts on creativity, on academic performance, on memory, on attention, and other cognitive areas. So that's one at the University of Amsterdam, with Arthur Jaschker being the director of this study. The second one, in the field of hearing impairment, there have been several studies since 2017, mostly around cochlear implant users. In order to see how it improved their perception of music and sounds after using Meludia. And I know that now, and we're going to talk about it today, researchers are exploring other effects, notably on speech recognition and quality of life, which is something I wouldn't say we were completely surprised about, but just to give you an insight, Vincent Chatrier, by creating this method, is always talking about a kind of speech therapy and the fact that music is like a language. For us, we try to see music as a language. And one of our first pitch of Meludia was we should learn music in exactly the same way as we learned our own language, through listening and imitating instead of learning to read right away. So there is this connection between music and language from our perspective. And finally, just to mention it also in terms of research, we are actively developing a dedicated mobile version now of Meludia, a different thing from what we've developed in the past, for people with hearing disorders. So that includes cochlear implant users, but also hearing aid users, and maybe people with very mild hearing disorders who don't have a device yet. And the app will contain music-based tests and exercises for patients. And the idea would be to give to the hearing professionals some detailed reports of the activities of the patients, and then give the patients some personalized activities for rehabilitation. So that's an ongoing work now.
We're looking forward to hear more about this in the future. Thank you so much for this introduction into the topic. And now I'm excited to introduce our next speaker. And I think, yes, thank you so much for sharing the slide for me. So next I would like to welcome Dr. Daniela Hollfelder from the University Clinic in Schleswig-Holstein, Lübeck. And she will present on towards improving music perception, speech, understanding, and quality of life for cochlear implant users with Meludia online training. So thank you so much, Daniela, for joining us today. And I'm so excited that you will report on these benefits that I think Bastien and I were very hopeful to see.
Thank you for this nice introduction. Let me share. Yes. Yes, I want to tell you something about towards improving music perception, speech understanding, and quality of life for cochlear implant users with musical training with Meludia. CI users, as you know, are still report insufficient music perception, which become apparent by a reduced pitch and chord discrimination, timbre perception, and cadence identification. Also, rhythm, tempo, and meter discrimination are close to normal hearing. So we decided to set up a study to see if Meludia online training enables enhancement in music perception, speech discrimination, and quality of life. We therefore we have had some study goals. We compared different dimensions of music in CI users versus normal hearing listeners. We've had two groups. Each CI group were listeners with MED-EL. They've had the same strategy, FSP. And we did the psychoacoustic experiments with a direct auditory input via streaming. The two groups we built were good balanced in number of participants, of age, and of CE experience. And in the form of the rehabilitation, we've had bimodal as single-side deafness and bilateral participants. We've had 4 follow-up meetings, and in each meeting we made the psychoacoustic experiments, we tested the speech perception, and we made a quality of life questionnaire from the beginning and in the last session. We created psychoacoustic experiments to examine the different musical tasks as chord discrimination, rhythm discrimination, and cadence identification and timbre. Due to the time of this short presentation today, I want to focus on the cadence identification. Therefore, we constructed an authentic cadence of four note chords. It's the tonic, subdominant, dominant, and tonic. And we tested 2 dimensions, the substituted and the shifted one. If you see the substituted, therefore we transposed the last chord with an augmented or diminished chord. And for the shifted, we transformed the last chord plus minus 1 semitone. What are the results? First, you have to look on the Meludia training time. Here you see the participants, number 4 and number 23, and you see the time in minutes. Here you can see a huge variety, inter-individual differences. So you have a mean time of 39 hours of training. This was the patient or the participant number 23. And you have a range to 7 hours only training. So from 7 to 131 hours training. Therefore, you have the participants reached different levels. But you see the 2 persons, number 4 and number 23, with the highest minutes of training reached the level of 40. So you have a saturation level of 40. And those persons, 18, 20, 22, they were the dropouts. What do we see in the cadences? We see on the y-axis the sensitivity index, the difference between the right and the wrong identified answers. The higher the level and the score is, the more answers are right. On the x-axis, you see the normal hearing group, and here you see the group with training and the group without training, and here are the 4 follow-up meetings. What can we see? First, we see the normal hearing listeners. This confirms the study literature from Knobloch et al. And we see the training group, we see a training effect. First, on the first meeting, you have a highly significant difference to the normal hearing group. And last, you do not have a significant difference to the normal hearing group. If you compare this one to the group without training, here you can't see any training effect. What's with the cadences were shifted? That was shifted with a semitone plus or minus. Here you can see that there's no difference, no training effect, even if you have the Meludia training or you do not have the Meludia training. Here it was really a hard experiment. They were more guessing than they do know what they have to do. What other goal we reached? Here you see the speech intelligibility, you see the Oldenburger Satztest in noise, and you see the group with training and without training. If you see the group with training from the beginning, you have a 4.5 SNR that improves highly significant to 0.5. This improvement you can't see in the group without training. They started at 3.8 and ended at 6.0. You have an improvement in noise for the speech intelligibility. If you see the sentence test for monosyllables in quiet, you see the first meeting for the training group. They've had a word recognition score of 60%. They improved at the end to 10%, but it was not significant. The group without training started with 66% and ended with 71%. So you have an improvement in both groups, but you have a higher improvement in this group with Meludia training. Then we tested the quality of life with perhaps some of you know it. It's an MED-EL questionnaire. You see with the table here, that was the training group. You do not see significant differences from the beginning. That are the brighter diagrams. And at the end, at the last, you have 73 score. So it's no significant change, and you do not have any significant change without the Meludia training. You see the person number 23 who was training really a lot of 131 hours. He has had an improvement of 10 that is seen here. The other person for the improvement is less. What are the conclusions now? You have significant improvement with Meludia training in some musical tests, not in a task, not in everyone, but you can see an improvement in the rhythm, in the chord preference, and the cadence. And you can see an improvement in the speech recognition in noise. The questionnaire, the MED-EL questionnaire, didn't show any significant changes, but we asked the CI users. They've had a much better identification of music pieces. They enjoy listening to music much, much more than before Meludia training, and therefore they have much more social interaction. For us in Lübeck, we therefore included Meludia in our online Meludia online training in our rehabilitation for the individual therapy as well as in the group therapy, because all the patients tell that they have a large improvement in the quality of life with this training. You have some discussion points for the Meludia training, because you have really high inter-individual differences in training time. And you have the saturation level of 40. So the reported Meludia training level affects also the training motivation from the patients. I want to thank MED-EL a lot for this study that was possible through MED-EL. And I want to thank the large study group. First, Ludwig Bruchhage, the head of the department, then Tim Jürgens, Herr Bader, Leo Imhäuser, Berges, and Langanki, and Martin Böckmann-Bartel. Thank you very much, because we used some of your files for the psychoacoustic experiments, just a little bit changed, but thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Daniela, for this presentation and sharing these results. Before we move on, I do have just like maybe 2 quick follow-up questions that I think will be of interest to the audience. You talked about these follow-up meetings. There were 4 meetings in total. Can you tell me about the time span? Like when did number 4 happen? Like 6 months after the initial meeting, a year?
Yes, it was a year. So after a year, the study was performed over 1 year, and those 4 meetings are just every 3 months they were coming.
Okay, but obviously the results are impressive enough that you now implemented really using Meludia in your clinic, in the rehabilitation, to make this available for your patients.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and we will have more questions for you and for the group later. So thank you again for preparing and for your willingness to participate today. I'm excited about these results, and I'm looking forward to the future to maybe see more results. Now I would like to introduce our 3rd and last speaker for today, Teresa Schneider. She is a speech therapist and the head of the therapy department for LCH Dornbirn, that's in Austria. So welcome, Teresa. I'm looking forward to your presentation on musical elements in speech therapy. And I think this presentation will focus a little bit more on the elements in speech therapy and your experience with Meludia and with a more, let's say, hands-on approach.
Okay, thank you very much for this introduction, and I'm happy to be here today and to give you a little insight in how music and speech is connected to each other, how music influences speech development, and how we include music therapy and especially Meludia at our center in speech therapy. So first of all, let's think about a situation we all know. You turn on the radio, you hear a song, and you try to guess what's the name of this song, and you know you've heard it before. So my question now is, what skills do you need to recognize a song? Well, above all, it's the ability to recognize rhythm, pitches, emphasis, pauses, and speed. And all these parameters are parameters of speech melody, also called prosody. And these different prosodic features are present in music and speech. So one can say that the bridge between music and speech melody is the bridge between music and language, of course, is the melody of speech. So there's a very close connection. So why is speech melody important for language? There are already a lot of studies, as we heard before, about the relationship between musical experience and the development of language skills. One of Rita Torpa, a university lecturer from Helsinki, she focuses on prosody and its role in speech perception. So parameters of speech melody are necessary to recognize the emotions and understand them, and thus also interpret language. By emphasizing certain words in sentences, they become highlighted. It helps to recognize new words in the situation and fast learn them. Word stress refers to the emphasis on a specific syllable in the word. So in musical activities and exercises, word stress and sentence structures get repeated many times and get better recognized. And this makes learning new words easier. Musical activities are also closely linked to prosodic perception, auditory discrimination, and working memory. Furthermore, musical activities benefit language skills and speech perception, as well as speech perception in noise. So, the same researcher also found out that exactly these links are, of course, also present in children with hearing impairments. And because of this, it's especially important for these children to have access to music, and for us therapists to use the benefit of music in speech therapy. For people with a cochlear implant, it can be hard to hear and distinguish prosodic elements in speech clearly. The users have difficulty with the perception of music and individual musical elements, especially pitch and timbre. Or another study found out that hearing impairments often leads to deficits generally in pitch perception. Here, another study, let's take a look. It shows very clearly that cochlear implant users could enjoy simple and complex music after music training much more than before. Furthermore, in the same study, participants also achieved better performance in speech comprehension in quiet and in noise after music training. So here's my question again, why music for cochlear implant users? Well, as you can see, several studies show improvements in musical skills linked to perception of speech prosody with musical activities. So prosodic parameters in spoken language can be learned more easily and quickly, and the affected people get a feeling of rhythm, language, and speech melody. Furthermore, musical activities enhance the development of the auditory system, as well as improved language perception skills, and they are, of course, also important for learning and educational success. By the way, music not only has a positive effect on speech perception, but on the overall whole development of children and adults. For example, communication, cognitive skills, fine and gross motor skills, social, emotional, or even creative skills. As we all know, surgery and adjustment itself are not enough to achieve success with a cochlear implant. Structured auditory training units are required in order to learn to understand language. In addition to practice with linguistic elements, it's also important to include the suprasegmental level. That means working with non-verbal elements, such as the parameters of speech melody, like rhythm or melody. So what are the goals here in music in auditory training? First of all, perceiving and enjoying music, but not only the aspects of music are important here. It's also about concentration and auditory memory, improving auditory attention, hearing in noisy environment, generally improved perception, and, very important in speech therapy, the interpretation of the prosodic features of speech. And all these aspects lead to positive effects on language comprehension. This we will see later on, especially in my examples. The selection of musical exercises for rehabilitation with cochlear implants with music is wide-ranging. Every parameter of speech melody offers a lot of exercise options. You can do exercises with instruments, everyday sounds, body percussion, voice, or digital programs. One very good option, therefore, is Meludia. On top, you see a picture from Meludia. I'm sure many of you know it already. So, how do we use Meludia? We use Meludia in speech therapy, individually with every client, with older children and especially adults. We like to use it with audio link, especially for single-site deafness, with clients who don't have practice partners or want to practice on their own, and of course, always in addition to speech exercises. So here's my first example. It's the parameter rhythm. In a music exercise, the question is, how many beats do you hear? And in the language exercise, the question would be, how many syllables does the word have? For example, elephant, 3 syllables. Let's see how this works with Meludia. Okay, here's another parameter, the parameter pitches. In a music exercise, the question is the melody ascending or descending? And in the language exercise, it's about to find out if the question is if the statement is a question or an answer. So, for example, you have time is a question versus you have time. That's an answer. Let's see how you can practice this with Meludia. Okay, and here's my last example about auditory differentiation and analysis. The music exercise is about to find out if the second note is higher or lower than the first one. And in the language exercise, the question is, which 2 words differ from each other in just one sound, also called minimal pairs. For example, pan, pas. Let's see how this works with Meludia, and you can try your best too. All right, let's move on. I want to let you know what our cochlear implant users say about Meludia. So here are some statements. For example, I'm not musical or have ever played an instrument. With Meludia, I can gain musical skills despite my lack of previous musical knowledge or experience, and it is fun. My wife always said my voice sounded monotone. With Meludia, I practice listening and distinguishing between different pitches. I can now use my voice better and in more variety. Or a client from another country tells me, the often missing vocabulary due to my poor language frustrates me during the frustrates me during the exercises. With music, other things are important, such as distinguishing between high and low tones. This shows me that despite my limited knowledge of German, I'm already good in many parts of auditory training on a non-verbal level. And the last statement, the entire program accompanies me step by step through the exercises and is very well structured. And this is what other speech therapists say about Meludia. Meludia is a great auditory training program for clients who don't have a practice partner or just want to practice independently. All clients train at the Explorer level, level 1 or 4. The others are too difficult for them, but it won't be boring because there's such a large and diverse selection of exercises. Single-side deafness makes training only with the implant challenging. For this, we use Meludia with AudioLink. It works really well. The visual indicators for correct or incorrect answer and the button for listen again provide security and make it easier to understand each task. What you hear can be compared and internalized several times. With Meludia, the ability to concentrate has improved for many clients. Most of them can concentrate longer during listening or speech exercises, and they tell us they can pay attention for longer during conversations in everyday life. And one last statement, children from school age also like Meludia. They enjoy practicing with digital media and develop great ambition while playing. So finally, I want to sum up, and I hope I could give you a little insight in the close connection between music and language. As we know, music and language are linked through non-verbal musical elements. Hearing and processing important prosodic parameters makes it easier to understand and interpret spoken words. Because of this, it's important to include music in auditory training and speech therapy. It should be understood clearly that traditional speech therapy is very important to hearing impaired people. But musical activities, and especially Meludia, can be used in an addition or also as an activity at home for the clients. We use Meludia with people all ages, types of hearing aids, hearing loss. So try it out, have fun doing music, and yeah, there's nothing more to say, I think. It brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you for this really great presentation. I really love especially the feedback from not just your patients, but also other speech therapists. So let me just ask you quickly, how long have you been using Meludia in your center?
Ooh, let me think. I heard of Meludia the first time, I think it's 4 years ago. Yeah, I tried it out myself the first time in 4 years ago, and I was so excited about it. So I wanted to try it out with my clients too. And since then, we use it at our center.
That's really great. And I hope this can be a motivation for other centers to use that as well. I think you have really great examples how these connect. And let me ask you, you showed these great examples of really how this closely relates the music exercise in Meludia with a language exercise that you use. And so do you pair these together? Like in a session, like do you switch back between let's do a Meludia exercise, let's do a language exercise, or how do you use that?
So we work with our clients on different parts on auditory training, and if we realize, okay, this is difficult for him or her, then we think about, okay, how can we practice this on a non-verbal level. And then we choose the right exercise with Meludia. You can start with an easy one and get more difficult. And in addition to it, of course, we make the speech exercises. And then it's so exciting to see how it's connected. And if you first practice on a nonverbal level, how this influences the speech exercise.
Yes, wonderful. So in other words, Meludia functions as a bridge when they are not there yet on this level of speech. and as you said, need a nonverbal access point. That's really great to hear, and really great examples. I think this is very useful and insightful for other professionals in our audience. So now I would like to open it up to questions and discussions. But before we do that, and you maybe know that already from Experts Online, we always love to take a picture with all our participants here. So I would like to ask you all to turn on your camera. Our speakers are already online, but I haven't seen anybody else. But please turn on your video so we can take a pretty picture of this session. And I think we need to be in a, like, not me, to focus. We need a different, what's it called, format, picture format. I'm sure my colleagues in Innsbruck are going to arrange that. Julia, are you there?
Yes, it's all set. We are ready for the picture.
Okay. And although I see myself in the spotlight, that's
fine.
Okay. All right. All right, then everybody smile. One, two, three. Gemma caught a B. Okay. Julia, did we get enough pictures?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all. All right, then we have about 10 minutes left to answer questions, to have a little discussion. And I've checked the chat so far. There seems to be nothing in here yet. So if you have any question, please either type it in the chat or raise your hand and you can ask your question directly. If you're a little shy and need another second, I do have prepared some questions for us, for the group to discuss. And I would like to ask all speakers, Bastien, Daniela, and Teresa, to join me in this little round table Q&A session. Perfect. Thank you. Now I can see all of the speakers. All right. So let me keep that chat active so I can see what's happening. But let me start with a question. So I have a pretty straightforward question, which is Meludia only for musicians with hearing implants? And the reason I'm asking that, which is a longer explanation, let me share a little bit, is that I think professionals, normal hearing professionals, as well as my colleagues at MED-EL, my normal hearing colleagues, I think are surprised when they first try out Meludia. It's a comprehensive program with lots of modules. I think I'm not able to, as a musician, I'm not able to finish the exercises in the expert level. But even, I think, in the discovery level, people are surprised that they don't just breeze through. I think that's their expectation. And so I think the impression occurs that, this is just for musicians, because musicians understand this. So now I want to hear from you. Teresa, let me give you the word first.
Yes.
What is your experience? What is your opinion on this?
So of course the answer is no. So Meludia is for everyone. Normal hearing people, hearing impaired people, younger people, older people, for everybody who likes music or wants to improve musical skills, or just wants to challenge him or herself and having fun doing musical activities, and there's so many options what to practice, what to play, so it won't get boring, and every person needs to choose what he or she prefers and how much he or she wants to challenge her or himself.
But so in summary, you would say it's a lot about exploring, right? It's not about right or wrong or get this done. It's about exploring and playing.
It's about exploring and also testing yourself. Okay, how good am I in this part and how far do I get? And it's once you started, you don't want to stop anymore. You want to go further and further and further on, and then you look into your watch. Oh, 1 hour has passed.
Yeah, Daniela, what's your experience?
It's the same. It's the same. We have to talk to our clients that they really try, because first they say, okay, I do not have any musical experience, but we have to get close to those people, and then they enjoy it, because it's like quality of life, because everybody has contact to music. If you listen to the radio or to a movie without music, it's not possible.
So you would say that some of your patients, their first response is like, I don't have background in music, so they need a little bit of encouragement, time to start into it. But once they're in it, they really like enjoy it and see the benefit. Is that?
Yes. We do it like this when they 2 weeks after the operation, the implantation, we do the activation. Then they start about two hours of training, and I say they can stream music, just listening, just training. So they start from the very first beginning with music, and afterwards we start with a Meludia, not in the beginning, but after a few months.
Okay, but still, it's great to hear, because, compared to 10 years ago, there is this shift of 10 years ago, the recommendation was to wait with music. And I think it's really great to see that now early on music gets recommended and that gets talked about at the clinic and in centers. So Bastien, if I asked you, is this just for musicians, like normal hearing and hearing impaired, but musicians? What would be your answer?
Absolutely not. Well, the answer would be definitely, we created Meludia for everyone to be able to access it right from the beginning.
Not just musicians.
Not just musicians. Can I give you a small joke? But it's not a joke. It's something.
Of course, yeah. An anecdote.
Yeah, because it seems like some people who are not musicians, they see themselves as terrible with their.
I know. That's why they need this encouragement. Many do, and like, I can't sing. I'm not musical. I don't have any experience.
Definitely. And the musicians, it seems like, okay, they have a very good level. But what we saw with Meludia, also going around the world and making it test by musicians, is that most musicians, I would say 99% of musicians, need to come back to discovery sometimes, not for everything, because they discovered and they have lots of things, but there are some exercises that will also be a problem for them because they've never explored this kind of this way of perceiving music. So that's why also it's beautiful. It's like it brings everyone together. When you go back to discovery, in a way, you're discovering something in a way that you didn't know before, whether you're a musician or not.
And I think kind of to some, one important point I hear from Bastien, and also Teresa had mentioned it, is about the exploring aspect, but not just like, don't just try one exercise and make up your mind about how difficult it is. There are different areas, and we will do differently in different areas. We do, and some people have good skills in melody, and others have better skills in harmony, and so it will differ. And cochlear implant recipients, their performance differs in many aspects anyway, so don't forget that. I think that's what I want to say. Okay, let me share a little bit here from what's going on in the chat. So Nicole Su mentioned that she showed Meludia to several clinicians days ago and they like it very much. Thank you for sharing that. And Dirk Hardig is saying, I think it's a very good add-on, especially for single patients. I had a CI patient, single, and over the years alone with no one to communicate. And I think Meludia is a good motivation for them to practice, to hear. Then Nicole is saying, I have one question to Teresa. How often do you use Meludia in your therapy, and how? On one-on-one or with many? And I think this kind of goes in line also with my question. Teresa, maybe you can answer first and we can all share our insights. So how often and how long do you use Meludia in your sessions? Would you share?
So Meludia is a great program the clients can use by themselves at home. So of course we introduce it in therapy and we show them how it works, and we also pick the exercises we think that is good for him or her, but then we tell them use it at home. So when they come back to the auditory training at our center, it's every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks. We ask them, okay, how did it work? Do you have any questions? Shall we take a look at it again? But it's really also very good for the clients to practice at home. And at home, I always tell them, it shouldn't be like, okay, you must practice with Meludia now, so sit down and use Meludia. It also works really well in daily routines. For example, one 18-year-old girl, she told me she's driving train every day for half an hour. So she's practicing with Meludia during the train ride. Or others do it in the evening to calm down a little bit, sit on the sofa. So it should be fun. And better more often and not for too long. That's what I always tell the clients.
Okay, Bastien, let me ask you, because you have a specific recommendation, how often, how long to use Meludia. Let's share that at this point.
Yeah, we usually recommend some sessions of 15 to 20 minutes. Of course, if the people are very interested and motivated, they can do a bit longer, but we usually recommend to limit it so that they don't have an overload, like a cognitive overload with it. In terms of frequency, what you saw, Teresa, is actually what we noticed as well, which is that it is good to have frequent sessions. We would say around 3 to 4 sessions a week. Is a good way to start, and of course, the more people use it, the more they can play, or the more also they can also relax and do it like 2 times a week. Would be a good way after 2 or 3 months, for example.
Daniela, do you have any thing you would like to add, or?
Yeah, we first with the study we were looking how much they trained, and we saw it was very different in intervals. So we said, okay, just 3 times a week for 20 minutes. Not everybody was using it like this when we were weekly getting the times they trained. But now we say at least once a week for half an hour, but yeah, and that they should tell us and get in contact if they have problems.
Yeah. I don't know if you plan to continue with this data collection or if you have wrapped it all up.
We're just analyzing the place pitch match as well. Yes, but we're summoning up to.
Okay. You know, I very well understand the challenge of studies that, first of all, have more than one meeting for testing. So you have follow-ups. And when you do that, just for that reason alone, you have people that drop out of studies because, you know, it's a commitment.
Yes.
And then additionally, with any kind of training study, and, you know, I've seen that a lot in music and in the area of music, it's very hard to get the commitment from people to consistently practice. But as you showed with your data, the individuals that are committed and that do practice have more benefits.
Yes.
And you know, for if anybody was interested in starting a study, I would kind of go with the recommendation that Bastien said, to do it 3 to 4 times a week, 15 minutes. Okay, it doesn't have to be long. You can squeeze in 15 minutes, and maybe that makes it a little easier. And this is also the approach that you see with other apps like Language, Duolingo, or any other app that is out there. You know, they recommend to do it frequently, if not, you know, every day, but for a short amount of time, so that people are maybe more willing in this way to consistently practice. So, all right, I mean, I would have, you know, more questions to discuss, but I think we're at the end of our webinar. I do want to share a feedback here from Kerstin, who says, thank you so much for your presentation and information. We already recommend Meludia training to our patients, especially if they are struggling with enjoying music after they got their implants. Thanks a lot for your work. So thank you all. To the presenters, a big thank you and applause for your willingness to participate, for all the work that you do at home with your patients, promoting Meludia. I'm really happy to see that this resource is so useful on so many levels. And thank you to the audience of joining us today. I hope you got lots of good information that you can take to your clinics, to your patients, to the people you work with. And always feel free to reach out to me or MED-EL with more questions about Meludia. Thank you so much. And this concludes our webinar, our Experts Online. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your evenings. And I will enjoy the rest of my day here in the US. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.